Jon Voight, welcome to An Actor Despairs. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. You're a true legend in everything that you've done. And as an actor myself, you've inspired, and there's such gravitas, and you're you have something that's so rare in this business, which is a shot at immortality with all your work that you've done. It has graced the screen for so long, and it's been so inspiring to not only myself, but to so many actors out there. And I love watching you work, and to be honest, I've stolen from you so many times, and
Oh,
I
good, Ryan. I'm so happy about that.
I just have such tremendous respect for you, sir, and everything that you do and continue to do. And it's a real honor to get a chance to speak with you.
It's nice to be with you too, Ryan.
Um,
And
so
I meant that. If you've stolen anything from me, I'm very grateful that I can
you know that's the great
I'm,
artist still.
I'm working for you. Yes.
So if it's okay with you, let's just start at the very beginning. You grew up in White Plains, is that correct?
Yonkers, which is right next to White Plains. I went to school in White Plains.
Okay,
So,
cool. And how was that experience growing up in Yonkers?
well, I say that being from Yonkers, you can't have heirs. I've said that several times. I even wrote it in an attempt for an autobiography one time. You can't have heirs if you're from Yonkers. It still has the grime of the Industrial Revolution on it, and
Yeah.
the people from Yonkers are, honest folks, and it's great. I'm so glad. I'm very proud to be from Yonkers, New York.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And my dad was from there, who became a golf professional. He was a very poor boy, grew up in these little hills of Yonkers, and then became a golf professional and had three boys, and I was the middle of those three boys, and we had a good time growing up. And there was a time when you could go in and out of each other's neighborhood, a lot of kids, and you could go in and out of each other's houses. There was no locks on the doors. There was no fear. And it's a different time.
A better time, it
And
sounds
I'd
like.
like to bring, and I certainly, and that's part of the impetus for the things I say about what's happening now in my encouragement to get back to sanity, because
Yeah.
I know I've experienced a very, very good time, a very good childhood, and I would love to have that for our future generations.
I fully agree. And I'm curious then, obviously, so was your father interested in the arts at all? Did he curate, like, were you, with the proximity to New York, were you ever going to Broadway? How did this whole thing happen?
Oh. Well, I have to say my father loved movies, and he loved television when it came about in the 50s. And I was in my getting into my teens in the 50s, and I watched Sid Caesar, this fellow who you may not know. It was a great comic genius, and he had a show called Your Show of Shows on Saturday night. It was live for an hour and a half, and he had a team of comedy people. Sid Caesar, Imogene Coca, this wonderful clown woman, wonderful, and Carl Reiner and Howard Morris. That group of four, but mainly was Sid and this woman, and they were all geniuses. And the writers for that group were Neil Simon, Mel Brooks, Woody Allen. Can you imagine?
The best, the best.
These young crazy guys at that time, and the work that they did was quite spectacular. And I used to imitate Sid Caesar and all these characters that he played, and that was the beginning for me. And the love that my father had for that, he had good taste, my dad, and the love that he had for movies and actors. His favorite actor was Spencer Tracy, and it was my dad, I think, that opened the door to all of this wonderful entertainment and the gift of storytelling that was becoming the American the American contribution to culture throughout the world through
Yeah.
movies.
And when, they really meant something, it wasn't conflicted with IP and brands and trying to
Yeah.
launch things, I love that.
Yeah, well, they had a lot of, in every way and in every area, there's difficulties and stuff like that. Then there's greed that takes its hand in it, and there's vanities of a different sorts. But the real stuff is still there too. The great people rise to the top in some sense.
Yeah.
And we certainly were very fortunate. There are two groups of people that I have great love for. The moguls who created Hollywood, who gave us these great movies and discovered this wonderful talent and found a way to produce what we know today to be the great American movies.
Yeah.
That group, and then the founding fathers of our country, that group of people, these clusters of people that made a huge difference in the world.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's beautiful. So at what point then did you start to interest yourself into, maybe attending an acting class, or was it high school theater?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I was influenced by this group, Sid Caesar and his group, and I used to do imitations of Sid Caesar
Oh.
and the characters he played. He played this German character that was a know-it-all. And he would say like this, he would talk like this here. Oh, that's wonderful. When you take a rocket ship and you send it up high enough, it stays up there, floats, just floats like on the top of a water, And then what happens is, because there's a lot of space up there, you know what I mean? It's a continuum of time and space. Sometimes you got a lot of time and very little space. And sometimes anyway,
I love it.
bully around, but
Yeah.
he had this character that was this kind of silly fella, and then other things too. But I was drawn to character acting that way. You see,
Absolutely.
I wanted to entertain people with the imitations that I had, or my grandfather who used to speak a certain way, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed accents. I enjoyed different kinds of physical things and stuff.
Real
And so,
actor, as they would say,
well,
I
in some sense, I'm more related to Lon Chaney than I am to some of the actors I grew up with. But I work with some of the greatest actors. I mean, my group of actors, the actors I worked with, Dustin Hoffman, being very high above, the world of acting. He's just a magnificent actor, and then I was made friendships with so many other people. Al Pacino, as he was growing up, we were friends, and these great talents from every generation of actor that has contributed to what we know as the film world. I love these people, what they've done, and the stories, of course, that they've told that have moved us so deeply throughout our lives. So anyway, so I guess I got into that romance of it, and then there was a time when I was very young looking when I was a young fellow. I always, I had this baby face and white blonde hair, and just I didn't look. There wasn't anything that I could play that wasn't kind of juvenile for a while. When I was in college, I was a young fellow in college. And I knew once I'd made the decision to go into acting that it would take a couple of years before I would be able to play roles that I perhaps wanted to play, to step into that arena. But I was smart enough to know that, and I went to work, and I put a couple of years aside to study. And I studied very hard and made sure I made those classes and did the disciplines of it. And then I got a break to be in a play, A View from the Bridge, off Broadway.
one of the best.
Great Arthur Miller play.
Yeah.
And I played I played the young lead, the young romantic lead in that piece, which is the second lead. And the lead was Robert Duvall.
Wow.
So Bobby Duvall was my first introduction to the American great acting, and two people he lived with, Bobby Duvall lived with, they had an apartment in the city. It was Dusty Hoffman was his roommate, and Gene Hackman. Can you imagine?
Wow.
These three crazy guys, great guys. I mean, those are three extraordinary actors, and they're wild people. I got to know Bobby very well, and I still stay in touch with Bobby, and I did that wonderful piece with Dusty, and I stay in touch with Dusty, and Gene is retired, and I worked on a film with him. I was very grateful for that too. So I put I finally did work with all three of them.
Yeah.
I was very, very grateful for that association with those guys. But anyway, so I from that piece, that was the first time I had tried out some of the work that I had been doing in class. And not everybody has to go through the things I went through in class, but because each one of us is unique, each soul is unique. Quite amazing thing.
Yeah.
And we each have influences that are unique to us, and things that are boiling in potential for us to do. And we take what we can get. Like if we put ourselves in a class, somebody's going to take a word or two from somebody and say, that's me. And each person will have a different thing that they derive from it. But it feeds that particular talent that they have, and then it comes forth. So I had my group of influences in my life that I've identified pretty good, and they've served me well. And I'm still, I still with every role discover something.
That's
So
beautiful.
It's fun for me, and I still have the enthusiasm I had when I started out. Nothing is diminished. I still want to tell a great story and move people and let them in on something and have the fun of it, and see if I can achieve something that'll give them something, So that's where I am. I'm still there.
And that's so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. I mean, every actor, including myself, we dream of, never losing that passion, no matter how much life weighs you down. And I'm curious, methodology wise, at that time with Stella and Lee Strasberg being so big, did you find a certain, school of thought that you resonated with the most?
I worked with Sanford Meisner.
I love Meisner.
So he was a great guy to work with. He gave me some structure, and I needed structure. I had a lot of talent. I had a lot of this and that, and I could do certain things. And sometimes when you get into that situation with class, you think you don't know anything. You see, and you have to start out like with baby steps. The fact is that everybody that's into this business has talent, and the talent is there, and the enthusiasm is there for so many things. And sometimes we throw that away and think we don't know anything. We have to start from scratch. But that's okay, because you come back to it. You see, you come back to the discovery, oh, gee, I did that, or I feel this way, or no, that's not the way I would do it. I'd do this, whatever it is. You find yourself, your own choices as you grow. And each role asks you to enter into something that is unique.
Yeah.
So you're always discovering, and you've never put the nail in the wall and said, that's it. It's always in flux in some way. And there are actors that didn't, and I know Al Pacino got a lot from Strasberg.
Yeah.
And I know Brando's journey, and all the great actors. And this actor that I worked with on Mercy, Jonathan Rhys Meyers,
Love Jonathan.
He's a tremendous actor. He's a tremendous actor.
Yeah.
Great imagination and a great ability, and a lot of things that he has. Johnny has he has a musical background. His family was all into music. He plays the guitar brilliantly. He sings. He does all of this stuff. I mean, and he's got all of that stuff. So he has musical movement. Somehow I see with him, his timing is a certain way. He's exact and he's this kind of perfect blade in a scene. It's something, and he's got something from the musical background I can see in his work. But we all have something different, each one of us, and we have something unique.
Yeah.
We don't have to look for anybody else, and say I have to be this. No, you find out yourself the things that you like and the things that you'll discover things that you're good at. You'll discover it. And you say, oh, I didn't know I could do that one. Boom, and there it is. Yeah. But anyway, so I encourage that. And but all these teachers are good. They all influenced. They all took you somewhere and gave you something, And one of the things that I thought from that whole group of people, Stella Adler was also, really an amazing giant,
Yeah.
She was responsible, I think, in many ways. She was the one that was befriended and encouraged Marlon Brando in the way he went.
Wow.
And I think she had a lot to do with other of her great talents. But anyway, they had love. They had a love for this business. Those guys, they hurt when they couldn't get someone to a discipline that worked for them. They couldn't. They hurt because they loved so much what was possible. So, give you an example of something else. It seems to me all of those people were musically attentive. Now, this is the second time I've mentioned music, and I don't usually mention it. I've never mentioned it before, I think, but the discipline of an orchestra, when you see an orchestra play, it's a magnificent thing, isn't it? You don't know how can they do that with all the other sounds that are going around? How can they even hear the violin, hear their own violin to see if they hit the right note? I don't know how the heck they do it.
Playing rhythm and key, it's impossible. I don't have it in me.
No, but
yeah,
it's a wonderful thing. I see an orchestra play, and I'm amazed. I'm amazed at music altogether. Somebody said, I think it was a rabbi who said, music is God's pen. And I say, isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful. And there's something to that. But all of this, they all loved the disciplines of the musical world. They all appreciated it.
Yeah.
And that should give us something, Those people who practice, that little kid that's practicing and driving his family nuts because he's practicing on the violin and then becomes something else, it's like crumbs. But anyway, there's but on top of that, I want to just say this. I went through that thing in New York City. I went, had very little money, and I tried to make ends meet. I had my father as a golf professional help me, pay the bills and stuff. And I did go to school, and then I started with A View from the Bridge and got a lot of attention for that, and then I started my career, and I was very fortunate to get things that I could do.
Also very talented, though. I mean, you're incredible. I mean, you're talking about Gene and Al. You're one of the greats. You truly are.
Well, you're very kind.
I mean every word of that.
Kind person. Did your mother tell you that?
I'm sure she would say that, but I even speaking with you, it's like I feel like I'm getting a chance to talk to Buddha. This is such an amazing. But obviously, for the viewers, it's going to be impossible for me to go through your entire filmography.
Now, I wanted to tell you something else.
Yes, please.
Ned Beatty, who was in Deliverance with me.
Yes.
He's no longer with us, Ned. and Ned started in regional theater. He had no training as an actor, or at least he never admitted to any. As a matter of fact, he said he didn't. And he and Ronnie, and I don't think Ronnie did either, Ronnie Cox. Anyway, Ned Beatty was a great actor. And this film Deliverance wouldn't have been successful without his performance. It's just a great performance, and should have had an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting.
I
But
agree.
so should Burt have had it. Burt Reynolds in that film, he was brilliant. It just shows you the real different stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
range.
here you have this guy. He just went into regional theater, and he had his own particular. He was his own person. Ned always was his own unique person, very unusual person, had very strong views on everything, and he kind of carved out his place, right? And therefore he didn't come from that root that I came from, but boy, was he fantastic. He was fantastic, and so it doesn't, there's no one way to do this.
No.
Anyway, and the talent and then Burt Reynolds, of course, who had all of this humor, great humor. He had a great joie de vivre. That means joy of life, he had that. He was a funny, wild character, very sexy, chased the ladies and did all of that stuff.
Of course.
And had this bravura. He was an athlete, and was like second string All-American at I think it was in Florida State, I think.
Okay.
And he was, that was Burt. And then he did this role, and this, for some reason, this role was just right for him. And so sometimes it's just when you just think you're down on your luck, and then somebody offers you a role, and you might not even identify yourself with that role, and all of a sudden something takes root, and you're great at it. Well, that was Burt. Burt just did that role. He was wonderful in that role, and he didn't have a great, sometimes didn't have a great a great thought that he was a good actor. He might have talked about himself as fooling people or something like that, but he was a wonderful actor. And anyway, so
That's
it comes from all sorts of different directions.
Thank you for illuminating that. And just to kind of, I guess, gauge one question before we jump into Mercy, obviously you have so many incredible performances: Midnight Cowboy, Runaway Train, Deliverance, into the 80s and 90s, and I'm curious, what was it like working at what a lot of film theorists and even cinema lovers argue was the greatest time for American cinema? Did you have an awareness of that? Was it just such a great time in your life doing all those projects?
Well, yes, it was. It was wonderful to know some of the folks that were really the top of the class in that time period. That was exciting. It was exciting. The thing that was exciting, I'll tell you what was going on. I look back at the 30s and 40s in this country, and I say, they talk about it as the golden age of cinema. I believe it was. And I look at Capra, and I look at all of the great actors of that time, the writers of that time, the crafts, the storytelling craft that those writers brought forth in the stables that were created by these moguls, right? The word mogul is sometimes a derogatory word. Well, it isn't in my thought. These guys were great people. They were tough, and they were, they were from, they had strong accents. They were from Europe, but they were they were brilliant, brilliant guys who got this thing off the, runway.
Absolutely.
And they set up a stable of actors. They discovered these people and all that. And then it came to toward the end of the 50s, all these fellows were passed on. And the people who inherited that world of movie making sometimes came from law practices and stuff. Do you see? They weren't the same people
Right.
that had this storytelling need. And they weren't filmmaking people. They were business people, perhaps. Nothing wrong with business people.
Yeah.
But they didn't have that same enthusiasm and that same
Passion.
or energy or clarity about storytelling and stuff like that. So they drifted into what was popular. Do you see? And they tried to repeat what was done in the past instead of continuing to grow and experiment and play and all of that. That's what I felt when I was growing up. I was watching it, and I saw that the movies were less interesting as we got into the 60s. And yet there were always great movies being made. Understand that. And the people who did them should be applauded. And they were great movie stars, but they were different than the time before. This whole idea of changing your name happened earlier too, which was a kind of a crazy thing, but that was interesting.
Yeah.
And then there was a group of people who wanted to just be who they were. And then there was the European films who took their enthusiasm from seeing the American films. And they were the ones who really carried on in a certain sense because they understood what the American films were and they loved them.
Absolutely.
So the French New Wave and the Italian films and the great Akira Kurosawa from Japan.
Yeah.
And so these people influenced my generation. We saw what they were doing, saying, this is what we want to do here. We want to talk about what we see here. We have ideas, we have different thoughts, whatever it is. And sometimes it comes from ego and things, but sometimes it's just pure creativity and seeing things truly. So that's where we came from. And when I say we, you can list all those wonderful people. I mean, Martin Scorsese and certainly, and Hal Ashby and
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, all the people I worked with, Borman from England and Schlesinger from England, and great people. And it was the projects that brought us together, and the families that were created around an idea, and we did our thing, and now we have whatever we have today. And a lot of the things today, of course, the technology has been just went through the roof. There's nothing we can't do today. Yeah. I mean, Lord of the Rings couldn't have been done when I was in my early years. It couldn't have been done. We didn't have the technology. Once we had computer graphics, and as expressed by the great Jackson, in Lord of the Rings, we could do anything. And Spielberg doing Jurassic Park. I mean,
revolutionary.
These things couldn't have been done. So we have, and now we have television that exploded, and people can have huge screens in their houses and stuff, sound systems. So many great things have happened, but we've lost the storytelling instinct a little bit, and we really have to get that back, I think.
I agree.
But there will always be those who can do it.
Yeah.
There'll be those guys who can do it, and initially they won't seem like they're part of the system yet.
I agree. Yeah.
They'll break in and they'll be discovered. Oh, well, you did this. Joaquin Phoenix, something like that.
Yeah.
He's so original, and he's been his own way. He's gone his own way. Joaquin, brilliant.
One of the best. And
Yeah.
I'm getting the 10-minute cues, so I please come back one day. I would love to talk with you more, but let's move into Mercy so I can make sure
No,
I
we
get you.
better get that done. Let's pay the bills here. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, how did Mercy come your way?
Well, Mercy was the brainchild of several people, but the person who's just like the moguls of the past. I have a very dear friend. His name is Stephen Paul, and I've been part of his family actually for many years. I've known him since 1981, and he's developed into one of these moguls, and he's now producing lots of pieces, and they're all pieces that he sees something in. And then he kind of passes them to me if he sees something for me in them. And he says, John, you could do this. And then I look at it and I throw in my 2 cents, and somehow it becomes a collaboration of some sort. But Stephen is the fellow who has to see it through to the end.
Yeah.
And he's got a nice team of people, very, very good folks now. He's developed a family of people who are very bright and very, very good folks, and have a passion to do things properly in this business. So I'm very fortunate to be part of this family.
Yeah,
And
so
I
rare and
mean,
hard to find.
yeah, and they've found a home in Paramount Plus at this moment. So so we've done a couple of films for them, and they've been successfully received. And this one will be received very well. People will like this movie
It's
because
it's a lot of fun, and
that's
I
right.
yeah, and was this your first time with Jonathan?
Yeah, no, it was the second time with Jonathan when we
Okay.
met. He was very electric when I met him. I was, whoa, this is fantastic. I really, and he has the same feeling about me. He enjoys working with me. So then Stephen said, it was like, it's like the old days. You get two guys that work well together, you make a project for him. So then this next project that he had, which was Mercy,
Yeah.
he calls Jonathan up and says, well, Jon Voight's going to do this, and so, and Jonathan apparently said, well, if John's going to do it, I'll do it. And then he
Love that.
says to me, Jonathan Rhys is going to do it. And I said, well, if Jonathan Rhys is going to do it, I'll do it. And that's how we got in this film. And then we started developing the relationship from there. And it wasn't written as it's finally been done. I think we did a very good job, and it's very exciting to see us both on screen together. It excites me to see us both on screen.
You both are excellent in it, and so great seeing you tackle a wonderful Irish father and the love that you have for both of the sons. And was it a fun time filming that, just getting to do the dance with this?
Well, yeah, it's fun to go to, and exciting. It's dangerous to go to work. You have high expectations and you want to see something through. And if you get a guy like John with me, it's like and I said to the director, I said, oh, by the way, good director, good new director. And I said, well, we've done this much work. I said to him, and I said, but when John gets here, he'll have his own way of going.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely the truth. I mean, when John stepped in, he had his own thing. So then it became this thing between the two of us. We had to stay on our feet throughout the filming with each other, So it was great, exciting.
It's excellent work, and it shows. And Jon Voight, you're incredible, and I have learned so much in this short time that we got together. And Mercy is now in theaters, I believe, as of today, or on Paramount, correct?
Yes.
Plus, yeah,
Both.
both. Okay, so
Be in select theaters. I don't know what that means. I don't know how many people get to see it. What I suggest is that people who have big screens, like a sports bar screen,
yeah,
have a night when they screen Mercy and have people invited into their bar or whatever it is, and everybody sit around and watch a nice movie.
it
It'll be
says
fun.
in theaters today on Digital 519, and I live here in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, across from a sports bar, and I will do that very thing
It's
and
fun.
have people come.
People will like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you did something like that, they'd have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Jon
Anyway,
Voight, thank you for
great.
your time. I really am wishing you the best on this project, and I really hope we get a chance to work together someday. And thank you
Good
for your
night, Mike.
kindness and everything you had to say. It means so much to me.
Oh, that's great, man. Well, listen, you're the next generation, kid.
I'm
It's all,
trying.
it's all
Yeah.
on your shoulders.
Thank you. I got some things coming out, but just got to get through this strike first. So thank you
You'll
so
be-
much.
You'll do well. God bless.
All right. Have a great day.
Yep.